Welcome to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective and creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Greetings, welcome, and thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, and as always, I am honored to have you here, so thank you so very much. In this week's episode, we're talking about fairs, festivals, and expos for your Reiki business. But first, I want to make sure that you know that on November the 15th is the final of 3 free Reiki business workshops. So this third Reiki business workshop is about how to navigate the first 3 years of your Reiki business. And of course, if you cannot join live, all registrants will get the replay. So you can register at standingstoneshealing.com/Reiki BizKit. And if you are tuning in and saying, wait, the third, there were 2 others, I missed them. Don't worry. If you register for this third one and be on the lookout for the emails, there will be an opportunity to get the recording of the past 2 Reiki business workshops. So yes, you can get all 3 by registering for this final third free Reiki business workshop at standingstoneshealing.com/Reiki BizKit. Yes, the link is below. So thank you. Fairs, festivals, and expos can be awesome for your Reiki business, and I personally love these events. I've been doing them for years and just find them such a great opportunity for meeting people, for getting the word out about your business, making connections, and yes, indeed, even making some money for your business as well. Now, when I talk about fairs, festivals, expos, what exactly do I mean? Well, any kind of small town fair, any kind of town event that you might have, craft fairs or things like that are a possibility. Any kind of very focused fair or festival where there are going to be other kinds of practitioners, holistic practitioners, readers, and things like that. And then expos are these events specifically where you're going to an event. Typically, it's a 2-day weekend event, a holistic expo with lots of other holistic vendors, readers, psychics, Reiki practitioners, all kinds of holistic practitioners and vendors set up. Oftentimes at these events, there are workshops as well, which can also be great for you to get in on. And so I really like these kinds of events because they are indeed a lot of fun. Now, focusing specifically on those expos. Now, you may live in an area where there really aren't too many of these, or maybe even any at all, in which case, hey, you might want to start your own. But these events, the way in which they are often set up is that you, the vendor, will pay a fee. And so you'll pay a fee for a table, and it really depends on how large the expo is. Oftentimes will determine your fee. And oftentimes for these kinds of expo events, the metaphysical, the holistic, the natural living kinds of expo events, you will be paying a few $100s for a table. I've seen prices for tables at these events anywhere from $150? Yes, $150 up to $600 or even more, depending upon the location and the foot traffic. So these events can be a little pricey, and I will say that some of the smaller kinds of events are going to be a little bit more uh, economical for especially a newer Reiki business owner. And so I encourage participating in these holistic kinds of expos and events. But know that if these events are out of your budget, especially when you're first starting out, that you can have great success with a smaller festival, a smaller fair, even one that isn't necessarily geared towards holistic, metaphysical kinds of vendors. I will say, though, that when you have an event that is, then people going to the event are going to expect there to be readers and Reiki practitioners and etc. Whereas if you're set up at a smaller craft kind of fair or festival, a more local kind of a thing, you will have people who are coming not specifically for card reading, Reiki, tapping, acupuncture, or whatever other modality might be offered. Psychic readings and all of those things. They might be going for the socks and for the pot holders, all of the knitted hats. And then there you are with your Reiki table beside the knitted beer cozies. So that is a possibility, and be aware of that. If you're setting up at one of those smaller fairs or festivals where people might not be expecting Reiki, there are going to be a lot of people who don't even know what Reiki is. And so I encourage, if you do one of these smaller fairs or festivals, one of the benefits of them is that the price to participate is often less. And so oftentimes you're not going to be paying as much, especially if it's a small local festival where you might be beside your neighbor who is selling their cookies. And so at these events, they can be a great starting point because their price point is often lower for a table. But what that also means is that, especially depending upon your local area, you're going to have a lot of people passing by your table who have no idea what Reiki is. And so at these events, be prepared to do a lot of talking about Reiki and a lot of educating and a lot of explaining. And please do feel free to check out my podcast about talking about Reiki for some tips and encouragement on that. But just be prepared that at these kinds of festivals and fairs, you're going to be talking about Reiki more and doing more educating than if you have a table at a holistic event, a holistic fair or expo, where most people walking through the doors are going to be acquainted with Reiki. Many of them are going to already maybe even be Reiki practitioners. So there is a big difference here in the type of fair, festival, or expo that you attend and the level of knowledge of the person coming through the door, and indeed even the level of comfort. So what that means is that if you're doing these kinds of events where you might be beside the potato chips and beer cozies, socks, cookies, and knitted hats, to be prepared to talk about Reiki, to be prepared to educate. If you're doing one of these events, I also encourage maybe lowering your Reiki price point a little bit, because money is a bar. And when you can lower your price point, you're going to lower the bar that someone needs to cross in order to try Reiki. So what I mean by that is that there's a comfort level. And people who might not be acquainted with Reiki and might not know what it is might be a little less comfortable to give it a try than someone who is already familiar with it, which means that the price point can be a level of comfort for them that if you lower it, they can have a greater chance of giving it a try. So let me explain a little bit more about what I mean. Let's say that you're at a table at a fair and you are beside the knitted hats on one side, and then someone selling their kettle corn on the other side of you. And someone comes past your table and they're like, Reiki, what's that? And you explain it, and then you're like, would you like to give it a try? $50 for a session. And they're probably going to be like, hell no. I'm not giving that brand new thing that I really know nothing about a try for $50. Let me go just buy my bag of kettle corn over here for $5. And so just be aware that if you are able to lower your price point, then someone who's brand new to Reiki is going to have a little bit easier time parting with their money to give it a try than if it is an expensive thing to try out. And so let's say that that person comes to your table now and they're like, oh, Reiki, what's that? And you explain all about it. And you're like, would you like to give it a try? Just $5. They might be thinking, oh, well, heck, why not? I was going to buy the kettle corn, but, I can buy the kettle corn any day. It's not every day I get to try Reiki. Now, someone listening may be thinking, oh my God, $5, you're giving it away for free. What are you doing? You're devaluing yourself. You're devaluing Reiki. But hold up. The $5 is just an example. But indeed, lowering the price for entry can really help people who are not comfortable with Reiki or don't know what it is to lower their level of resistance to giving it a try. Now, of course, what that price point is really depends upon your comfort level. I know others, practitioners who have done these kinds of events for a donation and put out a donation jar. That's okay. The price that you offer at your table may very well be dependent upon things like how much it cost you to get a table at the event, how much it cost you to be a vendor. It may depend upon what area you're in, if people are already interested in things like Reiki, or if people have no clue what it is, or they think it's from the devil or whatever. So all of that factors into your own price point. But I do advocate at these kinds of events where you're going to be beside the kettle corn and the cupcakes to really consider lowering your price in order to lower that barrier for entry for someone to just give it a try. If you're doing a holistic expo, a holistic fair, or an event where people coming through the door are already going to be acquainted with Reiki, then absolutely this kind of barrier does not apply as much as it does with a more local, more craft kind of fair or festival, a street fair or festival. And so at a metaphysical, holistic wellness kind of expo, you're going to have a lot more people who are familiar with Reiki. And so what that means is that you won't have to worry about doing quite as much educating and quite as much talking about what Reiki is. And it also means that your price point may very well increase a little bit or more, again, depending upon your comfort level. This is not an episode about pricing, but I do just want to say that when it comes to pricing, there's so much that goes into it. And so I just want to encourage you to feel that out for yourself. If you do one fair and you offer 20 minutes of Reiki for $20, and then you go to the next one, and you decide to offer it 20 minutes for $30, there's nothing wrong with that. You can experiment with it, and that's absolutely okay. As a matter of fact, I do want to say that at these events, I've been doing them for years. I love them. They're a lot of fun. But years ago, I did an experiment because at one point I was offering both Reiki and card reading at these events. And so I would offer Reiki, chair Reiki, and I would offer card reading. And at one expo, I said, I'm going to run an experiment. And so I offered 20 minutes of chair Reiki for $20 and a 20-minute card reading for $20. And I said, let's see what the outcome is, which one wins. Now, after having, offered Reiki and card reading and I just gotten a feel for the demand for the different services, I had an inkling, I had a hunch that card reading would win. But I have to tell you, I was actually not expecting how much card reading blew Reiki away in the results. And so, that weekend, for like every 10 card readings I did, one person wanted a Reiki session. Now remember, same amount of time, same price, and I was just blown away by how many more people wanted a card reading. To the point where after that, I no longer offered Reiki at holistic fairs and expos, and I only offer card reading. And so what that means is that, yes, in this Build Your Reiki Business podcast episode, I'm talking about offering Reiki at fairs, festivals, and events, and I no longer do that. Yes, card reading is a very large part of my Reiki business, as you may or may well already know, but it is a very large part of my Reiki business. And so at these events, then, when it comes to offering Reiki, when I did offer Reiki, I just did chair Reiki. I never brought a table. I never had an elaborate setup. I was offering card readings and Reiki at the same time, at the same festivals. And so what that meant was that I didn't have a big elaborate setup for Reiki, and I just did chair Reiki. Now, I will say that actually may have had an impact upon my experiment. Who knows? Maybe someone was like, chair Reiki, forget that. Let me lay down on a table, buddy. And so that may have impacted the experiment. I'm aware of that and open to that possibility. But again, I only do card readings now at these events and for the past several years, just card readings. But to talk to you a little bit about how these events work and take you a little bit behind the scenes. With these holistic fairs and expos, there will be a charge for your table, and it does range. There is a wide range, like I mentioned, and oftentimes these events are a little bit more expensive than your local street fairs and festivals. What happens is that you will pay for a table for the event. And typically these tables are for a weekend, so they're often 2 days. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the fee and you're like, oh my God, $300 for this event? I can't afford that. Remember that it's a 2-day event. I also encourage you to, before plunking down any money, to see what you can learn about the foot traffic. Check out how the event has been marketed in the past. How long has the event been going on? Is it a new event? What is the person who organizes the event? What's their style? How do they promote the event? How are they getting the word out? Are they getting the word out? What do other vendors say about the event? Even reach out to other vendors, look at past years and see who has vended, and then reach out to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this event that I saw you were at last year. Can you tell me about it? What did you think about it? And so it's okay to do that. I've done that myself and have gotten great insights. And so absolutely, do that. And as you do these events, you'll get to know other business owners, other participants, and you can even make friends. I know I sure have. So shout out to the friends who I have made at these fairs, festivals, and expos. But absolutely scope out the event before you plunk down your Reiki business money on a table to give you an idea of what kind of return on investment you would get. But what you typically get for your investment is a table. Oftentimes, most times, these events will provide a table, and they will provide, that's a regular table, not a Reiki table. You got to bring that yourself. But they'll also often provide 2 chairs. You get in for free, of course, and they will allow a helper at your table to get in for free as well. Sometimes maybe more. Usually it's one other person that gets free access to the event in order to help you. So they're considered being a worker at your table. You really generally need to bring everything else, a tablecloth, anything else that you might set up. Oftentimes electricity is an additional charge if you need or want electricity. Any supplies, any ways of making change if you're taking cash, just all of those things are everything is what you've got to bring. They'll give the table, the spot, and the chairs, and then you got to bring everything else. But oftentimes they'll give you the size, the layout of the booth, whether it is a 10 by 10 is very common, or whatever other size they might provide. So that can help you to know that information beforehand to get an idea of what your layout might be. I do actually recommend before the day of the event and getting to the location and setting up to have an idea of what your layout will be. So don't be afraid to set that up in your living room and see how it might all look. I know I've done that. I don't do that anymore, but when I was first doing expos, I would set up a table and lay out the tablecloth and all of my things to see how I wanted to arrange things. So I do recommend that. See how you want to arrange things before you even go. I also recommend having a checklist of things that you need to take along with you. Now, I've been doing these events for years, and I still make a list every single time. And even I will tell you that on that list, I put everything, including things as simple as water bottle, food, snacks, pen. Yes, I will make the list that specific. And even though I've been doing these events for years and I know what I need to take, and I actually have all of my stuff stowed away in a special place for these events, I will still every time make a list and cross that off as I pack things and make sure that I have everything. So I do recommend having a list to make sure that you've got everything. You don't want to get to an event and say, oh my gosh, I forgot this, and this is 2 hours away at your house. So lists are always really helpful, but you'll show up, you'll set up, you'll get your stuff together. Typically, these events want you set up by a specific time in order to make sure that everyone is ready to go when they open the doors, because they want things to be aesthetically pleasing when people walk through the doors, and they don't want vendors who are scrambling to set everything up as people are arriving. Then, if it's a 2-day event, which these typically are, you leave your stuff set up overnight and do that as your comfort level permits. And so you may want to take things with you, but if you're all right with things potentially going missing, go ahead and leave them. But I can tell you that I have never had an issue at any of these events with any of my stuff being swiped, nor have I heard of any other vendors having an issue. And oftentimes the event host will have security and make sure that everything's locked up and make sure that all of your stuff is safe for the night. But of course, they also will not claim any responsibility if anything does go missing. So that's helpful to keep in mind as well. And then the second day, you will be able to do your thing yet again, hopefully serve lots of people, and hopefully leave with a nice profit, a nice return on investment from the event. Now, there is lots and lots to say about these events and offering some tips for making them successful. But in my years of doing these events, I do have a couple of tips to pass along. This is not an exhaustive list because there is so much to say. But I really want to encourage you to bring the energy. Bring your energy and be welcoming, be open, be accessible, be friendly. Now, you might think, Christian, yeah. Doesn't that go without saying? No, it doesn't. Because at one particular expo, I had my table set up. I was doing rune readings, and across from me was a booth that was shared by 3 people. And at these events, I like to go around and I like to meet the other participants. I like to chat. I like to connect. I like to get to know people. I like to make friends. I like to find out what they're doing and to know what others are up to in their businesses. That's a nice part of the event for me as well, not just doing readings and offering messages. But I will tell you that these 3 readers across from me, I never once went over and said hello. I didn't have the desire to. I was curious about what they did, but I just did not want to go over and talk to them because their energy was not open. It was not welcoming. For the whole weekend, they sat and read or talked. At one point, they were sharing a bag of chips. It was just not the kind of welcoming and open and here we are to serve, let's chat and come on over kind of vibe. And so I didn't approach their table, and I hardly saw anyone at their table at all. And I can tell you that out of all 3 of them, only one of them did 2 readings the whole weekend that I saw. And so I really want to encourage you to bring your friendliness, your welcomingness, and all of the great energy and positive vibes. And you might be thinking, oh, Christian, I really don't want to do these events because I'm such an introvert. Okay, first of all, I want to say that actually the vast majority of us are both introverted and extroverted, and that we fall along the spectrum, and that we fall along the spectrum at different points. And so what that means is that we might in one setting be introverted and in another setting be extroverted. Now, I don't mean that you need to be someone who you're not at these events, but absolutely, I encourage you not to read a book, not to scroll on your phone and be disinterested. And so what that means is that you don't have to be extroverted. You don't have to be like, look at me, here I am, come get Reiki. But rather, I encourage you to simply be in a receptive and open state and to be ready to meet with people and to maybe not be chomping on a bag of chips and reading a book, but rather to be alert and ready to interact and ready to receive. That actually goes a long, long way. Another thing I want to encourage you on is that you can indeed at these events change things up if things aren't working. One of the things that's wonderful about having these kinds of events that are 2-day events is that if you find out on the first day that something's not working, maybe you're not getting a lot of takers on your $100 Reiki sessions that are 1 hour long at these kinds of events. then it's okay to change things up and to do something different. So it is okay to lower your price, to offer a shorter session, to do something different. It's okay to make changes. And I want to encourage us that, people are stubborn. Well, I don't know about you. I can be stubborn. Probably you can too, because we're human beings, and human beings are just generally kind of that way often anyway. But what that means is that we can often say, well, this is what I'm offering at this event, and I'm sticking with it, and I'm not going to make any changes. And then at the end of the weekend, we've helped like one or two people. That's really what it's all about, of course, is helping and being of service. And if you are there at the event where you've paid $300 for the table and you're helping one or two people, not only are you not getting the return on your investment, but you're also not helping a lot of people. And if we look at these kinds of events as a way to not only help people, but to also help get the word out about our business and to get potential clients, then we're also not doing a great job of getting the word out about our business if we're only serving a couple of people at these kinds of events. So sure, maybe you're charging $100 a session and you're getting one or two people and there's a couple $100. Maybe even you are recouping your investment in terms of the table cost, which, by the way, you can write off on your taxes. And yes, I show you exactly how to do that in the Build Your Reiki Business program. But what it also means is that fewer people are getting to know you and what you offer. At these events, the vast majority of people who walk through the door don't know me and don't know my business. Sure, after doing them and doing certain ones again and again, there are plenty of people who specifically seek me out at these events, but there are so many more who have never heard of me. And everyone who gets a reading with me is another person now who has heard of my business, knows about me, knows the quality of reading that I offer and the messages that they get, hopefully likes me, and may indeed be back again. And so I think that these kinds of events are great opportunities for our business if we approach them with an open mind and are willing to maybe try and do some different things and to put ourselves out there. So again, there's so much to say about fairs, festivals, and expos, but these are just a few things. Do you do fairs, festivals, and expos in your Reiki business? What are your tips for doing these events? Like I said, this only is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to encouragement for these events. But I encourage you to drop your comments below, drop your thoughts below, especially if we are on YouTube. And to, of course, as always, please feel free to get that free Reiki Biz Kit at standingstoneshealing.com/Reiki Biz Kit, and to indeed check out the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build. Just a public service announcement. The registration fee for the Build Your Reiki Business program is increasing on December 1st. So please do jump in with us on that incredible introductory registration fee. standingstoneshealing.com/build. Sending so many blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and send to a friend. Learn more about the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build. Sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business.